Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football, continuing with our 2022 season previews as we take a look at Arizona football. Before we get into it, I just want to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown to the channel. If you guys do like talking college football, you do like talking the NFL draft, consider subscribing to the channel. If you guys do like the content, over 950 subscribers, that's absolutely crazy. Let's start talking some Arizona football. This is an interesting team to talk about. I'm very optimistic about where this program is heading. Obviously, fans are not happy with a 1-11 season with losses to teams like Northern Arizona, but Jeff Fisch clearly has this team going in the right direction. And you knew coming in, this wasn't going to be a 1 year turnaround. This roster had a lot of holes in it, and it had a culture. It was just kind of a broken program. And Jed Fisch, it's going to take a couple of years for him to reestablish that culture. But just look at that recruiting class. His first full year of recruiting, they're 26th nationally. Before that, they were bringing in like 70th, 65th nationally rated recruiting classes, according to 24/7 Sports. This year's 26th. They're making a lot of splashes in the transfer portal as well. It's clearly going in the right direction. I'm excited to kind of dig deeper into this program. Let's start with the offensive side of the football. Probably the biggest, the most impactful guy coming in, Jaden Delora from Washington State. He's a guy that is so talented. Watched him last year in the Washington game, the Apple Cup, some say. Uh, Gunslinger. I mean, he can throw the ball around the whole entire field. He can make every throw that you need him to make on the football field. He's had some off the field issues and obviously some accuracy problems on the field, but in terms of raw talent and arm talent, Jaden Delore is one of the more talented quarterbacks in this conference, and I think he's going to really drastically improve this offense that was playing a little quarterback roulette last year. I mean, looking at their stats from last year, catching a couple of the games, starting multiple different quarterbacks. I think they had 3 or 4 guys throw over 70 passes. Obviously, a guy like Jordan McLeod goes down to injury. That hurts. Will Plummer, I believe, is out. Jaden Delore is going to be the starter, and this offense is going to be much more explosive because he's at the helm. What's even more exciting though is the guys he's going to be throwing it to. I mean, not to slight any of the wide receivers from last year at Arizona, but they kind of lacked a little bit of juice, and that might have been the quarterback, the lack of consistent quarterback play. But this wide receiver group, starting with the transfer Jacob Cowan from UTEP, absolutely dynamite player. When you're looking at offense and when I want to evaluate college football offenses, I look for explosive plays. That's one of the most important metrics that you look for when you're evaluating an offense and how effective this offense will be. Jacob Cowan will help. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. He's a stud. I mean, he's 5'10, 175, 180 pounds. He's a great punt returner as well. But you get the ball in this guy's hands, and it is going to be explosive. Last year at UTEP, 69 catches for 1,300 yards, averaging almost 20 yards a reception. When you're talking about explosive guys, this dude is it. And to add on to that, one of the best recruits Arizona's gotten in their recent history, and T. McMillan, I'm not even going to try to say his first name, 6'4" guy, true freshman. I expect him to be a day one starter. That's just a different level of talent. Arizona is not necessarily used to getting that talented of a guy, top 50 player in the country. Believe had offers from USC, Oregon, pretty much any school he wanted. Comes to Arizona, he's going to be a day one starter. And combine those two guys, that is looking like a very good offense passing attack. This was something they really struggled with last year when I was watching some of their film. Just not really rushing and passing. I mean, they just could not move the ball consistently. Now you're going to get some really explosive playmakers. Moving over to the running back side, this is something that is still a concern. I think a lot of it had to do with the offensive line, but the running backs were just extremely inefficient. You're obviously returning a guy like Michael Wiley, who is a solid running back, but averaging under 3.5 yards per carry is just not going to cut it. So you're going to look for either he just needs to play better or probably a combination of you have a better passing attack. You might not see 7-8 man boxes like you were last season. And then you hopefully have an improved offensive line, but you would like to see a little bit more of an effective and efficient run game from these guys. And then looking at that offensive line, they're bringing back a lot of guys. I heard they were from what I was reading from the beat reporters, they were banged up in spring practice. I expect this group to be solid. I don't think it'll be an extraordinary group, but I think it will be a solid group. You have a guy like Janaya Sava. He's going to be a true freshman, 6'3", 330 pounds. He's probably going to be starting at one of those interior offensive line spots. He's a grown man, but again, that's an example of some question marks at the offensive line. Having a true freshman guy starting week one brings a lot of question marks. But again, I'm more excited about the explosive nature of this offense as opposed to having question marks about that offensive line. Because if you can create those explosive plays, you will be able to score points. Looking over at the defensive side of the ball, I can give you guys a little personal story. So y'all had Don Brown, your defensive coordinator last year. I'm a Michigan fan. I know plenty about Don Brown. And this defense looked good on paper, and that's what Don Brown's defenses normally look pretty solid. I mean, 64th nationally is a pretty solid defense for Arizona last year. The biggest concern in what I saw in film is the explosive plays. Just giving up so many explosive plays. That's the biggest thing you need to avoid on defense. We talked about how important it is on offense to have those explosive plays. Making a college football team go 10, 12 plays, drive 80 yards to score a touchdown, if that happens, you can live with it. But you can't give up those 3-play, 75-yard touchdown drives that happen in under a minute. That happens too much with Don Brown. He likes to blitz. He likes to leave his cornerbacks on islands. And quite frankly, as solid as that secondary is, you can't leave your unless you have an extraordinary secondary, you can't leave those guys on island. He did the same thing at Michigan. I mean, 0 blitzes with no safety over top, just leaving his cornerbacks in really, really bad spots. Pretty much exclusively man coverage as well, especially when you don't have the athletes to match up with the guys across from you. Playing man coverage has a lot of risk to it. Don Brown liked to play with that kind of fire, and sometimes it'd work, and you'd be very thrilled with kind of the turnovers he forced, the negative plays they forced. As a Michigan fan, I remember this. But then you just it's inexcusable to give up the 50-yard touchdown. And that's what happens with Don Brown. I'm excited to see this defense play a little bit more conservative, play a little bit more zone coverage, and not necessarily let teams go 3 plays, 75 yards, and go score a touchdown. Now, looking to the depth chart, watched a few of these Arizona games. I want to start off with that defensive line. When I'm evaluating defenses, it always starts up front. Being able to create pressures, havoc plays, sacks, negative plays in general, tackles for a lost sacks. That's how you get off the field in college, pretty much even in the NFL. That's how you have a good defense. I mean, look at Georgia last year. They had a lot of question marks about their secondary coming into the year, but it didn't really matter when you have 4, 5, 6 guys who are able to win one-on-one up front and create pressure on the quarterback. Arizona has some guys that I'm really excited about, starting with Keon Bars, interior defensive lineman, one of the more underrated guys in the Pac-12 and the country. In terms of pass rush production, you don't normally see that high of a level guy on the interior creating those sacks, creating those tackles for loss. He had 4 sacks, 8 TFLs. Really, really solid year last year. Second team all Pac-12 guy. You look for him to continue that. And another guy, Jalen Harris, I believe going into his redshirt senior year. So he's been around. You look for some increased production out of him. And then Hunter Echols, I believe a guy coming over from the USC. He's been getting a lot of buzz in terms of being an athletic playmaker on the edge. Defensive line should be good. It should be a solid team or a solid unit on the defense. Looking at the linebacker spot, they losing a couple of guys at the linebacker spot, but they're also bringing in some transfers, notably Anthony Solomon, another Michigan guy. I know him well. He's very, very athletic, can go sideline to sideline. A little bit more of like a hybrid safety linebacker, definitely an undersized backer, but in the modern era, especially in the Pac-12, you want to have your backers be able to be comfortable in space, drop back in coverage, go sideline to sideline, and make tackles in the open field. Anthony Solomon's a guy who can do that. He was a guy that I wanted to see on the field at Michigan. Unfortunately, just a really, really deep and talented linebacker group kind of limited his playing time. So he comes to Arizona. I think this guy can be a day one starter and a day one contributor for that team. Looking at the secondary, 190 yards per game through the air for opposing offenses. Pretty solid numbers. Again, limiting those explosive plays is going to be key, but they're returning a lot of experience. I think they're returning what I counted almost all their main contributors, their main starters from last year are going to be coming back, which is going to be nice for them. What I want to do now is take a look at the schedule. DraftKings and the national media have them at 2.5 wins. You guys are going to see my ugly mug for a second as we switch screens. And we're going to take a look at how this schedule is shaping out. I looked at it a little bit before the show. It's a loaded out of conference schedule, which is going to be tough. You start your season on the road at San Diego State. San Diego State was a very good football team this year. I'm assuming they're going to be very good next year. I haven't looked too much into them, but that is a tough first out of conference game. And then you go play an SEC opponent at home in Mississippi State. Mississippi State's a very good team, and that's going to be a difficult win. And then I'm thinking you got to pick out at least one of these wins in your out of conference schedule before you get into the Pac 12. And that's probably going to be coming from North Dakota State, an FCS team, but they've won the national championship in the FCS like 4 out of the last 6 years. The best FCS team in the country, a very talented group that just produces a lot of NFL talent on the offense line, and then obviously Trey Lance at quarterback the last couple of years. It's a good team, but Arizona should have the talent to match up with these guys. And this will kind of tell you how this Arizona season is going to go. If they can pick up a win against North Dakota State at home, I think that gives them a little bit of momentum going in to that Pac-12 schedule. And then California, a team that you guys beat last year, very winnable season. I could see being 2-2 heading into Colorado, and Colorado's another very, very winnable game. And if you pick up those 3 wins, you get three. You get on a little 3-win streak, getting into a little heater, going into some of your big games. Oregon, Washington's very beatable as well. They have a lot of question marks at the quarterback spot. USC, Utah, those will be tough wins. UCLA will be a tough game. Washington State, Cameron Ward going in there. It's a winnable game. I don't know if I'd project a win. And then Arizona State. And so are we talking about a bowl game this year? Realistically, I don't know if Arizona is a bowl game team. They're still kind of rolling in a lot of new faces. A lot of guys are leaving the program. A lot of guys are coming into the program. It's kind of hard to have a really, really solid season when you have so many new faces entering and leaving your program. What I'm more concerned about with the Arizona team is how consistent can they be? What's that culture look like, that competitive culture? Can you hang in more tough with those Pac-12 opponents? Can you avoid getting shut out? Can you avoid giving up 50 points? Can you look competitive and continue that momentum? That's been a great offseason for Arizona. I mean, bringing in that 26 recruiting class, getting a few high, marquee guys through the transfer portal. There's a lot of momentum for this Arizona football team to kind of get back to that Pac-12 level of football. I think they can do it. I don't know if it'll be a 6-win bowl game season this year. I certainly think they can win over 2.5 games. But again, you're looking, I'm less concerned if I'm an Arizona fan at the win-loss column and more concerned about how does this team look? Are they competing? Does it look like this momentum is being carried forward? We just did Kansas a couple days ago. I have the same ideas and feelings towards Kansas. It's a work in progress. This isn't going to be a 1 to 2 year turnaround. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm a Wake Forest guy too, so I know what it's like to kind of be in the bottom of the barrel of the conference. And it doesn't just click 1 year and you start winning 6, 7, 8 games. It needs to be a process. That's what Arizona is going to have to do. Optimistic about them doing it. I think Coach Fisch is the man for the job. Excited about this team. Once again, I want to appreciate you guys for tuning in. And if you do like to talk, I encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. I just appreciate all the support, all the comments, all the likes. You guys have been absolutely awesome supporting us. We'll be back with some more college football talk later. Peace, y'all.